Que I am privately as you can observe. We will keep our movement today. Today is, I have no idea what day is it. Today is day 21 May 2022. We will make our movement quite simple, quite clear. In the very first moment we worked, at least we may be working with the Federal Bureau of Investigation, maybe with the IIA, the Institute of Internal Audit, maybe with the CIA, with the State Department, with the IBM, with the AT&T, with the UNICEF, and others, plus OECD, NATO, and next may be the KGB, and we will keep, pure intention, very intention. We will have in mind that on home, an ancient culture and the birth of our Western culture, we had that society ruled by law, but not the law in the way we have. Before they have the law, they compile cases by a praetor, a magister, and then this came as something that avoid a lot of problems because you had compiled as storage situations that kind of could guide that society during a very specific period. This is the idea as jurisdiction. The jurisdiction is the use of state power to apply, some arguments and elements that brings ourselves to the idea as law. In the law, the way you have on West as a guarantee comes to 100 2015, I think, which was the Magna Charta on England, when poor people kind of had the argument to do not suffer an exploitation or expropriation of their homeland, their own land, and was idea as law, as legal, that on 1789 was so structured that created the idea as system, legal system. On home, we had one picture named Questor. In general, nobody likes this guy because he do questions all the time and act by intervention. Sometimes you need this. In the same way, in Italy, we have one kind of praetor or magister or a picture named corrigiere, which is the same idea, kind of acting by interference and have the questions about things. Here in America, we are kind of heavily closed our history as complaint at the court. We had a method, a market named IIO, which is attention, interest, and opinion. In general, it's like this. Once, when I was at my business school, I went to the supermarket to buy 2 boxes, that music box for a barbecue. And the guy kind of provoked me, the seller. We will have some kind of radio, small radio, and I kind of got that and I bought that big box. But the big box has a problem, and this is a problem that belongs to this kind of crook business, not our idea as offering a crook business to you. Indeed, we are working at the very first moment with the AIO, calling your attention sometimes by a pretension argument and bring your interest to your head and present your opinion, preparing the stage to your show. It's what they need to do, and indeed we did. We will shut down the radio and kind of have a conversation that goes like this. We will have in mind that the security forum Brazil USA in the very first moment, but Brazil USA in the same situation. But the development of things will create a discrimination about arguments, situations, and how the two players behave themselves in front of this kind of thing. Let's suppose that I am the problem. I'm anti-crime research from one side. Let's see if I'm the problem for the other side. Then we will make our movement today with this idea. We will work with something that works. It's our model and our intellectual asset. We suggested, requested to have the protection as patent and royalties and all things. We will move like this. Take a look at the board because we like the board. So, the eraser, we will have in mind that the last thing that we had was the notion as existence, considering the Western empirism by British and Scottish David Hume, giving ourselves that the existence of something that goes on and on and on carry in the end a frequency. This frequency as systematic behavior can be presented as a cooperation, or they do not have the cooperation. Positive fuel, you have the cooperation. Then we will check that our model goes like this. Positive fuel, cooperation. Negative fuel do not have the cooperation as systematic behavior. Then, if you are talking about a pandemic event, if you are cooperating as a cooperative peer, maybe you will not suffer the consequences as punishment, considering the paradigm as paradigm that we are using for comparative measurement that didn't have the cooperation, they did acting by the opposite side, sense and direction. Plus intensity, it's a vector against something named law that comes since 1789 as a system, which by obvious and proving our presentation during the trial, I would say, as arguments, do not getting along with the Constitution and the constitutionalism, which is the basic root to our society on the West. And coming a bit more to 1215, which was the Magna Charta on UK. It means that she would like to get back to the feudalism. I'm questioning you, institutional power on West. Which is your position? We'll make our movement today to understand, even if you'd like to have this position, the way you show, expose, and on Europe, considering areas that are the foundation of this modern society ruled by a constitution, having the new foundation of something by a new constitution. America has a constitution since always. Brazil had some, but tried to have this stability since 1988. And this constitution has clear instrument to do not shut down our legal system. If you consider a new constitution in Brazil, you will have an interval without law. It means that if you suffer a nuclear strike during this interval, and this piece of land disappear from our planet, you can complain. In the way you can. So, it will be like this. Our model is amazing, outstanding, unique. It's made by self-defense. It's made as a desperate way to keep my integrity in an area that do not respect my basic rights, do not respect my guarantees, and forced me to present this argument in other judicial system. And we will have on mind, consider you criminal offender, then, and you are not Brazilian criminal offender, segmented on budget, Transnational Organized Crime Unit, public investment system used for criminal purposes. The research made by America is all legal. They have the legitimacy to do this. We have the judicial power, but we must understand the jurisdiction. The jurisdiction, jurisdictum, it means say the right, say the law. USA. The judicial power is kind of the design of this jurisdiction. See? And we had an operation on Italy named Clean Hands, and the judge, I think that was Giovanni Falcone, got murdered by the mafia. And they got clear that you can't have the talk and the speech about state without talk about mafia. Because the mafia, since from the origin, is kind of question all things. They are kind of, but they sometimes do this by ways that do not belong to the legal system. Crime is lost, criminal movements, and they have lost since always the life, the freedom, the property. They must live in a clandestine way, because the way, as pathway to achieve their purpose and interest, sometimes is against the law. But they, as mafia and institutional movement, are inside our institution, especially on rich areas like America, like Europe. And this, in one specific moment, will carry the failures on your judicial power, which is the use of state power. It's on this operation that the mafia is a state as itself, but a state without no frontier. And you create an entire theory based on this, named globalism and globalization. You know? See? And those failures inside your state power indeed are failures on your state as security and defense that will create zones inside your capacity to use the jurisdiction. Now we will change the colors of things. We had the problem and observed that America had a problem on election. The electoral period on America had problems. See, red and blue. And we will observe that I have blue column, blue line, blue column, blue line. I have red column, red line. Is this carrying you the here as the very, prima issue on our master class. We have Democrats as my department on my company, Unix Solution Association, and I have Republicans. They are different, but in a very specific moment, they are kind of doing the same thing as column and lines, as column and lines. And this fusification here was presented at this body. See? And this fusification here as something that has no nationality, no gender, no color, no creed, is a state as itself belong to no one state, is inside this piece as economic and financial control since 1988 up to 2022. It's traced. And we will understand quite simple that this instrument that we are using, a 12 years old kid, have this sense in Brazil. Even as a regular kid, kind of almost an idiot, like I am. And we will check that our vector and our matrix and our binary paradigm is represented by this Venn diagram. This group is here. And by failure, and considering the failure of all things, we will have the failures on your judicial power. See? And the failure on your election. We'll finish our presentation here. The silence can be a crime. I'd like to thank the Institution of Internal Audit, the Federal Bureau of Investigation, all institutions, the Quantum Research, IBM Key, helps a lot, not only to have cartoons, but to have great charts. Have a good night.